back. Hour number 2 of Spooky Southcoast. Tim Weisberg here with you, along with Stephanie Burke and the silent assassin, Matt Costa. Science advisor Matt Moniz taking the night off to recover from his work-related trip. Not out in the field on assignment. I'm sure he would like to, but he's got to do the real job right now. So next time we'll send him out to Chicago to do some investigating.
Or maybe he's just contracted Ebola virus and he's hiding out.
Oh, don't make Ebola jokes, man. Too soon. Way too soon. Did I not turn your mic on?
I'm only saying it because he posted about it.
There it is. Okay.
Oh, you're there.
I always get the numbers confused on the microphones. Yeah, we spent a lot of time talking Ebola this morning.
Did you?
On the morning show. Yeah, well, I did. I didn't get a lot of calls. So I think that usually if I don't get a lot of calls, I think that means people agree with me. That's what I just tell myself.
That's a good way to look at it.
Yeah. If people aren't calling in, it's because I've already said the way they feel.
Right.
Speaking of calls, you can call throughout this entire hour, not with your thoughts on Ebola, but your thoughts on Lizzie Borden or anything else paranormally related. 508-996-0500, 877-996-1420. You can also tweet us at SpookySC, email us, spookycrew@SpookySouthcoast.com, or you can post in the chat room on Spooky TV at SpookySouthcoast.com. I want to say hi to everybody that's in the chat room tonight. It's pretty bumping. We have a lot of folks in there. So thank you for joining us. And if you ever have the chance to listen to the show live, you should definitely be in the chat room interacting with other listeners as well. I was going to say something else. I forgot what it was.
Well, give us a call and don't be afraid. We'd like to hear from you.
Right. We need to hear from you in this case because we're trying to get as much information about the Borden case as we can as we try to make our determination of what exactly we think is going on. We will jump right back into that in a few minutes. We do want to do... Let me just hit that button. I forgot when I hit that button, it's going to fire off something.
Are you trying to get weird?
I'm trying to get weird, but it's going to... There we go. All right. It's definitely weird. It's weird how I can never do it correctly.
No comment.
More bad news.
Well, I got a great show for you today with some wonderful weird stuff. I feel so very
weird. The Week in Weird.
All right. First up, we have woman finds 80 skeletons crammed into IKEA bags. I don't know if you guys have read this yet, but centuries-old skeletons were found in the basement of a Scandinavian church, crammed into giant blue IKEA bags. A woman walked in, discovered what she counted to be about 80 to 90 human skulls. These pictures are online, so you can actually Google them and look for them. She put them on her blog site. She was horrified by this. Apparently, the church called in an archaeological team 5 years ago to exhume the skeletons, some estimated to be about 500 years old, for a renovation, supposedly, or according to one of the scientists who spoke to the local newspaper. The plan was to rebury them as soon as possible, but the county board said that they couldn't leave the church ground and it became complicated. So they're just sitting there. They were just rediscovered, and they did give props to the unusual storage containers because apparently it stops the mold from growing.
No.
So I think I'd be horrified if I stumbled upon that.
Yeah. So they found the skulls, put them in IKEA bags, and then they were
It's
like,
all
we'll
kinds
bury
of
them later.
bones. I was looking at the pictures. It's all a bunch of bones and skulls just hanging out
Bag of bones.
in the giant IKEA bags.
So I guess the next time
Did it
my
come
wife's
with
like...
IKEA instructions? Put them
We'll
back
have to
together.
look into that.
That's good. The next time my wife's like, I'm going to IKEA, do you want to go? I think I'll actually go this time. As opposed to every other time, oh, no, I don't want to go to IKEA. It sounds boring.
That store overwhelms me. But apparently, there's something weird going on there.
It's Swedish.
Yes.
So.
Next up, we have World Trade Center ship dates back to 1773. Have you seen this?
I did. I saw the pictures of it. Yeah.
This is extremely fascinating to me only because I love history, but I think it qualified for weird. 4 years ago, it's just coming out now because they're dating the wood from the ship, but 4 years ago they unearthed a shipwreckage underneath what one of the World Trade Centers used to sit on. So Researchers said this week that a vessel unearthed 4 years ago at the World Trade Center site in Lower Manhattan was made from wood that was cut around the year 1773, so pre-Revolutionary War. They had a hard time dating the wood back, but they had to actually end up counting the tree rings to see how old it was.
Oh, really?
Yep. Let's see. Scientists at Columbia University's Lamont Doherty Earth Observatory, writing in July issue of the journal Tree Ring Research, said the white oak in the ship's frame came from a Philadelphia area forest and matched the material used to build the city's Independence Hall, which I thought was a really interesting connection. They said tentatively identified it as a Dutch-designed Philadelphia-built sloop made to carry passengers and cargo over shallow, rocky water. They said it sailed for 20 to 30 years before being weighed down and sunk to the bottom of the Hudson River as landfill to extend Lower Manhattan. A 32-foot piece of the vessel was found in July 2010, about 20 feet under a street during construction for a parking garage. And it's actually not the first ship that they found unearthed in Lower Manhattan. The first one was found, they actually found an 18th century cargo ship on Water Street in 1982. So, not every day you find a ship wreckage.
Right, because they did fill that area in.
Yes.
So I'd be interested in finding out if that wreckage is there completely under it, or if it's just pieces of it that have all been piled in from the wreckage.
It looks pretty intact. Have you seen the pictures?
I just saw the picture that I saw had people looking at it, and it was like a small portion of it.
Right.
So I didn't know if it was the full scale of everything.
Well, they actually found an anchor not too far away too.
Wow.
So, maybe they found more and they haven't reported it yet. Who knows? But
That's pretty interesting stuff, and it definitely qualifies as weird. Sure.
it is weird, especially the year it was built.
Shipwrecks fascinate me anyway.
I've always been fascinated with that. I love it.
We should probably do a show on the Mary Celeste at some point too, since we're
Why
5
not?
miles from Marion, so
We should.
something to put on the back burner.
And last but not least, Matt Costa, this one's for you. Island near Buffalo overrun by hundreds of cats. A small island near Buffalo has had a big cat problem thanks to people that have abandoned felines there over the years. Hundreds of feral and abandoned cats are believed to be on the Tonawanda Island. Mike Sharnock, who owns a marina and a restaurant on the 85-acre island just north of Buffalo, says that the cats are making a mess of the island and have even gotten onto the boats at his marina. Danielle Coogan has launched Operation Island Cats to stem the growing problem. She's been trapping cats and having them spayed or neutered by veterinarians. In the last 10 days, she's trapped 10 cats. Kittens will be up for adoption, and adult cats will be returned to the island. So I think that's where you need to take your next vacation.
I think so too. Yep. I'll be smitten.
You would. Rolling in a pile of kittens.
Kittens.
Smitten by kittens. Well, I do have one little story here that I'll throw in as weak and weird material, but Paul Feig, who is the director who directed The Heat and Bridesmaids, is currently rumored to be the new director of Ghostbusters 3. So the talk is that because Ivan Reitman stepped down when Hal Ramis died, said he didn't want to do it without him. So now the current talk is that it will be Paul Feig and that it will be an all-female Ghostbusters team. They haven't said if it's going to be a reboot where they're starting from scratch or if it's going to be a continuation of the original team, but they're talking about an all-female team. I just want to go on record as saying no. No offense, women. No.
No? You don't like that idea?
I wanted the original Ghostbusters to come back. I know Harold Ramis can't do it,
Right.
but that's how I want to see it. I don't want to see, because I already know who's going to be on the team.
Do you?
It's directed by Paul Feig, so that means Melissa McCarthy is one of them.
That'd be kind of funny, though.
Kristen Wiig is going to be one of them. I do not want to see them as Ghostbusters.
Probably Amy Poehler.
Amy Poehler, I can imagine. Tina Fey, you might as well, if you're going to have Amy Poehler.
Maya Rudolph.
Yeah, see? I already don't like where this is going.
That would be strange.
I don't want bridesmaids in jumpsuits. That's what I
It was a
don't
funny
want.
movie.
It was
though.
a funny movie for what it was.
Right.
It's not Ghostbusters.
Right.
Do I think it would be funny to have females on the team and to see a different perspective of what goes on? Sure. But do I want to see an all-female team? No. Well, I don't want it to exist without Bill Murray and Dan Aykroyd.
Well, when you change the original of something, it always is weird or not right. So.
Some remakes are better.
I don't know. The
So-
remakes lately have not been up to par.
When people remake Spooky South Coast, it's going to be so much better.
Is it?
Definitely. All right, well, that does it for the Week in Weird for this week. If you have any stories you'd like to share with us, you can just tweet them to us at SpookySC. Use the hashtag Week in Weird. And you can also email them to us as well, spookycrew@spookysouthcoast.com. Nice. I don't even have any breaks to take. I guess I could take a break, but I'm not going to. I'm living dangerously here in radio world. If only people actually knew, like if management listened and like, hey, wait, why didn't you guys play any spots? Because we don't have any to play.
We
Yeah.
can make them up.
They forgot about us. There's a few in here, actually, that I just found. So we'll run those.
Spooky South Coast made the WBSM Wikipedia page.
We did.
Did you?
I think I added that.
Did you?
I might have.
Oh.
I'm not sure.
It did say Tim Weisberg, terribly handsome host.
Well, that's probably.
So that's probably was that you?
I would never put that. I would never put that. That was probably Phil that wrote that. Now that makes me a little bit nervous when he gives me those hugs, those extra long hugs.
Phil's
Radio
awesome.
hugs.
He is awesome. I'm just kidding. And we are discussing the Borden case, and where we left off, we were kind of discussing the leg lifting incident, which has happened to a number of people, and it's happened not just when we're there either. It's happened when other groups have come in, when other paranormal groups have investigated, when other events have taken place. It's something that other people have had occur, and it's one of those things where it's not possible that everybody is faking it.
Right.
It's not possible that everybody who has gone there and had that experience, it was all in their mind.
Well, especially because I think it's safe to say the majority of the people don't even know each other.
Right. And a lot of the folks who have had it happen to them are people that I know and trust that would never just
And you
pretend.
don't even tell them what really happens ahead of time. You just kind of say, lay on the bed. It's been rumored that your legs will get lifted.
And the more that it happens, the more I think it's just one of those stories that it's something that people can walk away with and feel comfortable.
Right.
You know, you can go there and have that experience and not feel terrified like you would if other activity takes place. It's kind of almost like a safe way to touch the other side when you're at the Lizzie Borden house.
It's kind of like communicating.
And there's no terrible story associated with it. You know, nobody's ever had their legs ripped off and then beaten to death with them. You know, so it's
That would be terrible.
Not yet.
right.
I would
Not-
not go
not
back
yet.
as many times as I had.
So there's still that just that way of saying, it's more or less a friendly interaction.
Right.
So I think that's why people are willing to give that a go. There's other things that have happened there and other experiences that we've had that are a little bit more terrifying for people.
Right.
I mean, we've been growled at. That was a very freaky experience. We were there with Donna LaCroix doing an investigation, and we were talking about when Taps had been there for Ghost Hunters, and her and Andy had been in the Knowlton room, and they heard this banging sound, and it turns out that it was the sewing machine that's in the next room over, the Jennings room, that is known to go off on its own. The pedal will vibrate back and forth on its own. So we were in the other room. We made that noise, and Donna was in the Knowlton room. She said, "Yep, that's exactly what I heard." And we explained to her kind of what it was and what happened. So we all went and sat in the Knowlton room to see if we could hear it happen again. And we were conducting an EVP session at the time. And as we're all talking, we hear in the background, in the back corner of that room, right near the like between the window and the wall, in that little corner where the roof slants, we all heard this very audible growl, long, low, like.
Mm-hmm.
And it was prolonged. It was a good 5 or 6 seconds, and we're all just like looking at each other, like, "Did you hear that?" And then as soon as it stopped, everybody's playing back their tape recorders. Nobody caught it.
But
So,
I feel like that always happens. If you hear it audibly, you don't catch it.
but that's good because that means that it wasn't a truck going by. It wasn't something vibrating. If it was any of those noises, anything mundane like that, it would have picked up on the recorders.
Very true.
So the fact that we didn't have it made it all that more profound. Now, can we ever share that with anybody else and say, "Hey, listen to what we caught"? No, but we all knew that we heard it. It was probably 5 people in the room that heard it. Were you there, Matt, when that happened?
No.
So there were other people in the room that heard it, and none of us caught it. So I mean, I consider that to be one of my better experiences there. And I know that there's been plenty of EVP that have come out of there. Luann Jolie of Whaling City Ghost, she's in the chat room. Hi, Luann. We had a great talk earlier today. But she's caught some phenomenal EVPs out of there that have been featured in all the TV shows. And whenever they have us on TV talking about Lizzie Borden, it's always those clips that they want to play of this voice calling me a name, telling me to do something not so pleasant to myself.
That happens to you quite often in that house.
And the clip that we have where we think that it's Lizzie Borden saying, "But I'm a good daughter," in a
That one is
Victorian era
really cool.
accent. And if you've never heard these they're all available. You can check them out on YouTube. You can check them out in our past episodes. I'm not going to pull them all up and play them and just keep, going on with those again and again. I'd rather you go back and download those other episodes so we get some more downloads. But the but the fact that we captured those, that was the same night that I was thrown up against the wall, which was one of my more profound experiences there. When we were investigating for a magazine article, and if you remember, Matt, it was around this time. It was like late August, I think, of 2000, middle August of 2007, and it was hot as hell in the house that day. There was nobody staying there. There was no air conditioning running, and everybody was just sweaty and gross, and Liz, the house psychic, was wearing a tank top, and we could see welts appearing on her. She felt like she was being attacked by Mr. Borden. She was getting scratches and welts that were showing up on her. Now, Stephanie, you study psychic abilities,
Yes.
mediumship abilities. And this happens from time to time with people where they feel like there's something present, and they will be physical marks that will happen in occurrence with this.
Right, and it doesn't normally look like what you see, like a regular scratch or something like that. It actually happened to me in the house.
Is it something that people could do to themselves?
Absolutely.
But not with their own hands. I mean, can you somehow with your own subconscious make a welt or a scratch pop up?
Very well be hives just from, whatever nervous energy is happening or, your own thought process. Because a lot of people do go into it very nervous or unaware of what's going to happen. I call it the fear of the unknown. So yes, you could. Could you physically do it to yourself as well? Absolutely. I can say the one and only time it happened to me was in that house, and I was not nervous, afraid, anything. The situation I was in wasn't exactly the best or the safest. So I lifted my shirt up on the back of me when I walked outside, and everybody had looked and like, oh, well, that's normal, to the point where it resulted in bruises the next day.
Ooh.
So it was definitely a strange phenomenon. Can I say that it was caused by something in the house? I'll never know. I could feel something happening to me. I just wasn't sure what.
See, with us, and were you in the room when that was happening, Matt?
No, I don't think it was.
Okay, because I know that some of you guys were upstairs monitoring the camera,
right,
in the Knowlton room. But what we saw, and I know Luann was in the room with me. I'm pretty sure, and I see her in the chat room, so she can probably jump in if she remembers this differently. But we could see on Liz, like you would like if you scratch yourself right now and you watch it show up.
Right.
We saw that happening without anything making it happen.
Right, and she's there enough where she wouldn't be afraid or anything like that, I don't think. So it's definitely something strange that is unexplainable.
So I see it picking on her, and I decide to tell them, like, don't pick on her, pick on someone your own size. And I stood there and I said, I won't even fight back. And I put my hands behind my head, and something grabbed my elbows and started wrestling me. And it's not, I mean, I'm a pretty solid guy. It's hard to move me around. And especially if I'm fighting back. And I was fighting back. Like, I was pushing back as much as I could. I didn't take my arms out of that position because I didn't want what was happening to stop. I was afraid that if I took my arms out and moved them forward, whatever it was there would move away. So I left my arms like that, and I just kept kind of pushing back against the pressure, and I ended up getting thrown against the wall.
I remember hearing that story. Now, was that the first physical phenomenon that you did experience in the house?
Aside from the leg lifting, which was far more gentle and
Right,
took a
totally
lot longer to
different.
have happen, it didn't have this type of force.
How did you feel after that happened? Were you thinking to yourself, this is real? What the heck was that?
I was like, yeah, there was something there, and I just wanted to go after it even more. Which I think that was probably the basis of my adversarial relationship with whatever was there.
I'd say.
And I think it was, a lot of times I say that when I use that approach, it was because I was trying to make something happen.
Mm-hmm.
But I think it was more just a matter of, it might have actually thrown the first punch. Which
Yeah, absolutely.
until now I never really thought about. But
No, those type of things tend to screw with your mind a little bit anyways.
I never really gave it much consideration. I just thought that I was the one that was going in there and acting like a jerk, and I was getting what I deserved. But now, looking back, I think it threw the first punch.
Well, see, same thing with me. I was in a similar situation as you, and I wouldn't so much say provoke it, but I was saying or asking questions that would not make it happy. Um, and but it started with me first. It came after me first. So naturally, your curiosity peaks and you think to yourself, can this really happen? Is this happening? And you start to, push back a little bit just to see what will happen next and then push back a little bit more. And that's how I ended up hurt. So don't do that at home, kids. But it, it, since every time I've gone back to the house, at least, there's been one thing that has happened. Just back up until recently when I went with you and we were sitting with the Ouija board and hanging out. You've almost developed this relationship with what's in the house.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not a relationship you really want to have, but it remembers you, it knows you, and it waits for you to come back. It's very interesting.
And he not afraid to make himself known.
No,
that's for sure.
Not at all.
Just trying to think back chronologically too. Well, that same night, if anybody has seen the footage of the camera moving, that was that same night. Now, Matt, we've debated this over the years. The camera moving,
Right.
Because it was a hardwired camera.
Yes.
And it was moved. It was the cables were run against the wall, right? They were taped to the wall.
I don't think they were.
Okay, but they were run against the wall so that hopefully nobody stepped on them or tripped on them. In the video itself, you see the camera move, and it's not. I had the camera for a number of years in my bag because Moniz wouldn't take it back. When he gave it to me one night, I was like, "Here, take it." No, hold on to it. Here, take it. And I never use it, so I didn't want to have it taking up space in my bag all the time. But it was not a swivel camera. It was a base with the camera on it. For it to move, the whole unit had to move. So it picks up and it moves. Loanne was in the room. Well, she went into the room. She reset the camera. She stepped on the wire to try to make it happen again. And it didn't happen when she stepped on it. But then a few seconds later, it picks up and moves. And she could actually see it pick up and move. She could see it make that shift. So were you able to try and mess around with that at all and have the same thing happen by stepping on the wires? Or
I don't think we ever got it to do the same thing, the same movement by stepping the wire, kicking it, or so. I guess it's one of those things.
I mean, everybody that was there
Mm-hmm.
investigating that night was in that room right outside because everybody was talking. They weren't even talking. We were just having a conversation,
right,
about other things, and that's when it actually occurred. Which, as we know, that's when usually stuff occurs, is when you stop paying attention.
Right.
So it's definitely one of the clips that when we put it on the TV shows, it's the thing that everybody wants to know about. It's I remember when we filmed Ghost Adventures, and it was when Zach saw that footage, he was obsessed with it. He was like, "Oh, I want to know all the details. I want to know this. I want to know that." And they spent a good 45 minutes, Zach and Moniz, just talking about that for the camera. They cut it all down, but they talked about that for quite a while because he was fascinated with it. He thought it was one of the coolest pieces of evidence that he ever saw.
It is fascinating. The house itself is fascinating.
Right, and that's probably one of the few great video captures that we've had there over the years. We've cut a lot of stuff audibly. We've had a lot of personal experiences. We haven't had a lot of great video, but that is definitely one of those things. We do have a call on the line, so let's go to the phones. Good evening. You're on Spooky South Coast.
Hey, Tim. Just
Hey.
me. I had to call because you were talking about the video,
Yes.
and I'm the one who checked that camera. And, you know, people ask me about that all the time, and I checked everything. I checked all the wires that were taped down. There was no way they could have been pulled or manipulated. All of them were, like, taped down so well to that chest that that camera was sitting on top of.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't the wires pulling. Something literally had to have moved the camera because the base of it was securely taped down with duct tape. And, you know, none of that duct tape was up. It was all secure. And I adjusted that camera, and it was right in front of me that it moved again. And I wasn't touching it. I was standing, you know, a foot and a half away from it.
And the chest is curved, and the base of the camera is flat, so it would have to be held down in some fashion,
You know,
or else it wouldn't just sit on there. At least I don't think.
it was secure.
I know that I
And
tried to
I
put my phone
literally
on the
danced on the
chest and slid
wires
down.
to make sure that, you know, none of the women standing in the doorway could have maybe, you know, pulled the wire with their foot.
You can see in the video too. You see you stepping on the wire.
You know, that the thing moved like that. It had to have been manipulated by touching it and turning it on the base.
And it's interesting that it happens twice.
Yeah, and pointed right back at my legs. You know, it was like it almost, when it turned around like that, it seemed to have some consciousness because it pointed right at me.
And
You know, that seemed deliberate to me. It wasn't just, it turned somehow. It deliberately, like, oh, yeah, you just messed around and checked everything, and, oh, look, I can do it again.
that whole night was just very active. And I remember that we had the writer with us, Jay, and I still talk to him from time to time.
Yep.
And because he's the current position that he holds, he emails me, and he still says it's like one of the craziest nights that he's ever had. And he just came just to kind of document what we do. He wasn't planning on kind of becoming part of the story, but he did.
Yep. There was phenomenal EVP that night. I mean, everything all together. That was one of the best nights activity-wise. You know, that's definitely a top 10 investigation in my eyes.
And it's one of the ones that really convinced me that place has a lot of things going on. Not just the Borden story. There's more to it than just that.
No. But, you know, we've talked a lot about the Lizzie Borden house, and there's so many factors because I think you do actually go back before the Bordens with what's going on in that area. You know, you go back to that skeleton and armor that they found. You know, to me that puts a possible burial ground underneath all those houses. You know, the area, the rivers were almost on top of the place. You have a ton of factors going on there. You know, it's almost like one of those, what came first, the chicken or the egg? What came first, the paranormal problem or the murders? You know, because there's a lot going on in that house. And I don't feel it's just the Bordens either. You know, I think there's a little something more there.
Oh yeah, and we're definitely getting into that coming up. So, well,
Good. I love it. You know, I love a good Lizzie Borden story.
Well, thank you for checking in.
Oh, anytime.
All right,
you guys have a great night.
You too.
Bye-bye.
And if anybody else would like to call and share their own Borden stories, and again, it doesn't have to be a paranormal investigation. Maybe you were on the tour and something weird happened. You know, maybe you've been there visiting. Maybe you stayed the night there and something weird went on. 508-996-0500, 877-996-1420. Those are the numbers to call in and chime in. You can also jump in the chat room, too, at Spooky TV at SpookySouthCoast.com. But that night, again, being just a phenomenally active night, we went back there many times afterwards. We had the incident where we were just there ourselves. It was myself, Moniz, Jeff, and Chris Balzano. We had that incident where we were in the basement. We heard the footsteps on the first floor. Ran upstairs. Nobody there. Jeff calls it one of the few real paranormal experiences he's had in his very long career. and he's been everywhere.
Right.
Any haunted place in the United States, he's been there.
Which is really awesome.
It's a great job to have. And but he said that that's one of the most profound experiences that he's ever had. And then that same night, we were on the first floor in the dining room recording, because that was right when Weird Massachusetts had come out, the book. And we were having Jeff on the show to talk about it, but we were pre-recording the show. And we were recording it in the dining room. And while we're in the dining room, we weren't recording the show at the time. I don't think. Maybe we were. I don't know. I have to go back and listen to it. But we could hear the sound of a woman singing on the second
That's
floor.
so weird.
I might be getting this backwards. Oh, on one floor, we heard a woman crying.
Okay.
And then we went to that floor, and then we heard a baby on the next floor. It might have been the baby on the second floor, and then we went upstairs. We heard the woman crying. I forget the exact order, but we heard on the upper floors a woman crying and a baby crying.
Now, was that audible?
I'm sorry, a woman singing and a baby crying.
Is it audible?
Audible.
Okay.
We didn't catch it on a recording. We heard it with our own ears, and it freaked me out. Chris was a little bit on edge from it too. Jeff was just like,
I think anytime kids are involved, it just gets creepier.
yeah, kids do freak me out. Yeah. But it was just, and that's how it goes. Like when there's nobody else in the house. I've been in the house by myself, and when you're in the house alone, you hear noises.
Mm-hmm.
When you're in the house with just a couple of people, you hear noises.
Well, it's almost like a time warp too. You know, most haunted houses, that word again, but you go to, there's some sort of normal part of the house where, you know, up to date living quarters, things like that.
Mm-hmm.
Leanne has her own, you know, separate place.
Right.
So you walk in, it's almost like you're walking in right to the day of the murders.
Exactly. And they've done everything they can.
Right, which is, I think it adds
down to the
it.
wallpaper.
It adds to it. I'm sure it adds to the energy too, because what they're coming back to is something extremely familiar.
And
So
as far as they're concerned, it might not be any different. You know, we could be
Yep.
walking into their house. But the things that have gone on, I like to have those experiences when it's just a few people in the house, but it's also harder to get people to buy into that because they're going to be skeptical. It's like, well, you were the only ones there and you weren't recording anything, and
mhm.
and so it's hard to get people to accept that as being part of the overall story. But to me, it is. I mean, it's not just us too. Other people who have been there alone have had those types of experiences. There's people who stayed there. They're the only couple staying there for the entire night. Leanne's out in the barn. They're the only people in the house, and the whole place will go haywire.
Yeah, it happens. I mean, I think it's a big, you know, fun party thing for people to do too. Hey, for my birthday, I want to go hang out at Lizzie Borden's
Right.
house, or I want to sleep over at Lizzie Borden's house. And I was actually at a cookout, I want to say maybe 2 months ago, and I don't even know how it came up. I might have been going, or I might have just come back right around the time that we went for TerraCon. And somebody said, "Oh, you do that?" Or I saw you checked in on Facebook at Lizzie Borden house. I've been there. I went with my sister, and you know, she wanted to sleep over for her birthday. And I said, "Oh, you know, how did you like it?" And she's like, "I'll never go back." Why? We slept in the same bed all night. She was terrified. I was terrified. And you know, I love to hear those stories because it's people that don't believe in the paranormal or don't think that anything can happen. They're just going for the thrill of things, and it actually does happen to them.
And I can tell you, I've heard plenty of people who said that they would never go back there again, but not one of them has ever said it has anything to do with the experience of staying there.
Mhm.
You know, everybody says what a great job Leanne does.
Oh,
The
it's
breakfast is
awesome what they do.
fantastic.
Yeah,
You know, it's definitely a 4-star experience, but it's always something
strange.
creepy that drives them out and makes it so they won't go back.
There are people that don't even stay the whole night. They leave in the middle
Which
of the
is
night.
crazy because it's not
Forfeit your
cheap to
money.
stay there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
There's no refunds, and so so when people do have those experiences, I definitely take, and they all write them down in the log. You know, whenever I go there, I
That's
always
really
go
cool.
through the guest log, and I read and I see what people are reporting there. But you know, being there that night and having all those things go on was pretty good because you know Jeff's pretty skeptical about a lot of stuff, and so to have him say, okay, you know, I can't explain this, was pretty interesting.
I like when things happen to Jeff.
I do too, because he gets it's like he gets a renewed not that he has ever lost a passion for it, but you can just see like he gets that sense of wonder again.
Right.
So instead of writing about other people having that sense of wonder, you can see him.
I think I like to watch
getting
the
it again.
genuine reaction
Yeah,
to what's going on.
he does definitely. He doesn't hold back.
No.
With what he's feeling. So there's been so many other nights that we've been there for both events or other people's events or people investigating and they invite us to come over and a lot of things that happen. I think my next most significant experience personally was when we were there on the anniversary of the murders. Moniz and I had been at the Quikasham Club.
Okay.
I think we were meeting with Dan about doing the show there. And the plan was we had teamed up with Dartmouth Anomalies Research Team, to do an investigation over there. And I think this is when we were having the preliminary discussion with Dan about coming in and recording Spooky South Coast while we were doing the investigation. And so we decided on the way back to stop at Lizzie's because it was the anniversary. We wanted to just stop in and say hi. We knew some folks would be over there. And there were a couple of high school kids that were there. And they were walking around filming with a camera. And they asked us to investigate with them because they'd never investigated before, and they wanted us to show them how. And we all went down to the basement because other things were going on in other parts of the house. So we went down to the basement. And that's where I saw a shadow figure, legitimately, for the first time. Like, outright in front of me.
I've seen that one a couple times.
It was crazy.
Mm-hmm.
And we followed it for about 45 minutes from room to room in the basement. 4 people. 4 people all seeing the same thing. 4 people seeing a full figure standing there staring at us and then bolting from room to room. It wasn't like it was somebody's shadow on the wall. And whenever I see a shadow figure, I always do the same thing. Everybody hold completely still. All right, now everybody move your right arm. Move your left arm. Jump up and down. Just to see if it's any of our shadows that we're seeing in some way. But when we looked at it, it was moving completely independent from all of us. It would move and then stop and then look at us, almost like to taunt us, to like, hey, are you coming? Are you going to chase us? And it went from all the different rooms on all the different walls within that basement. And that basement is segmented into 1, 2, 3, essentially 3 different rooms. So to chase it all the way around was pretty interesting, and to have it go on for that long. And I've had shadow people experiences ever since then. But this was just great. Now, Matt, I don't know how you feel about shadow people. Haven't you had shadow people experiences?
I'm still not sure if they were legitimate shadow person stuff, but it's an interesting phenomenon.
I mean, it's almost like one of those things where I can buy into it as being something that exists, that is a physical reality, but not a paranormal occurrence, if you get what I mean.
Okay.
Almost like it's possible that EVP is just recorded, just things that have been said over the years that have been imprinted environmentally and somehow retained. Maybe that's what a shadow figure is. Maybe it's just the imprint of a person having walked in that space, and it kind of just stays stuck there and replays.
Right.
So, I don't know. But
would that be the same thing as a ghost?
Depends on what your definition of a ghost is. I think it would definitely be the definition of a residual haunting, if you want to get into the different types of hauntings. Yeah. But
we argue about semantics all night.
All I can say, and I know we're talking about Lizzie Borden tonight, but if you really want to believe in shadow people, I'm going to take you to the Houghton Mansion.
Okay.
I really want to go.
If what happens when you go happened to us the night that we go, you will believe in shadow people. Because that was amazing to stand there closer than you two are to me right now. The other people that were on the other side of this little tiny hallway. Closer than we are. Maybe the distance of like from here to the end of the board, away from each other. And to see these shadow figures walking in between us, turning and looking at us, and then continuing on their way. That blew my mind. And I've seen them quite a bit ever since in other places. So,
well, the more you look for it, the more it looks for you.
As Moniz would say, does anybody want to do the Moniz impression?
We'll let you do it. You probably do it better than I do.
It's what he learned when he started investigating. When he said, "For every step you take toward the paranormal, it takes 2 steps toward you."
It is true, though.
It is.
The more you think about it, the more your mind opens to the possibilities of what can happen.
And it's almost like, when you see those pictures online, like, Tom Cruise has a tooth directly in the center of his face, cannot unsee. When you see those type of things. Joaquin Phoenix's forehead looks like another face. Cannot unsee. Have you seen that?
No.
Look it up. Look it up. Look up the Joaquin Phoenix forehead, and you'll see exactly what I mean. It's funny, but once you see it, you can't unsee it, and that's kind of how it is, especially with shadow people. So, I mean, just trying to get up to date because so many things have happened there over the
Well, you're
time.
talking a good 10 years of experiences in a 2-hour show.
Yeah, just about. So when I think the last time we were there was probably one of my favorite experiences of all time because for once it wasn't, overtly negative, which is what a lot of my experiences have been. And I mean negative like in terms of like
Not
it's
pleasant.
yeah, like it's taunting me, not negative like oh, this was a bad time.
Right.
But I just mean like in terms of the approach of you're watching it now. It's funny, isn't it?
It's creepy. Yeah.
No, if
Oh,
what
God.
are you image searching?
Yeah.
If you actually, because I can see on the window there, if you
Yeah.
actually look, there's an actual video, like of it zooming in, because I guess it's from that movie Her. So if you see, you can actually see it like zooming in, and it's really weird. But the last time we were there, it was yourself and Stephanie and me and Moniz, and we had a few guests there that had paid for the extra experience as part of Terracon. On the second night, you had gone home. It was just Moniz and I and Leanne, and she was in the barn. She said she was going to go to bed, and we were supposed to lock the place up. And we had made arrangements to leave her the key.
Right.
And so the way that it ended up happening is we locked the door. We walked out. We were getting ready to make arrangements, follow the arrangements for the key. And Leanne was awake. She popped out the attic window and said, "Why'd you guys leave the light on?" We didn't leave the light on. Why would we have left the light on? The bathroom window on the third floor was open. It was on. Sorry. So she's like, "Now I gotta go inside and I gotta unlock the door, go up to the third floor." So she comes down, takes the key, goes inside. We see her turn the light off. She comes down the stairs, closes the door. Right as she closes the door, the light in Andrew and Abby's bedroom comes on. Like, now that light's on. Did you turn that light on to go upstairs? No. Well, it's on. So she has to go back inside, unlock the door again, go back inside, turn that light off. She comes back outside. The third floor bathroom light turns on again. Now, if you are unfamiliar with the house, the third floor bathroom light can only be turned on from the switch outside the third floor bathroom.
Right.
There is a hallway light that can be turned on from the hallway, but only from the beginning of that hallway, because the way that the back stairs run is there's one staircase that goes to the second floor, then you have to go around a corner and then up the staircase to the third floor.
It's a really strangely designed house.
Well, it was originally a two-family.
Right.
So it's a little bit different than the way that we would build it these days. And the rooms are kind of all rabbit run on the second floor. But the way that, even if it was the third floor hallway light that had come on, which it wasn't because we could see the light in the room illuminated through the window. But if it had been the hallway light, even if that was the case, Leanne would have had to have gone up the first flight of stairs, around the corner, and hit the light switch to that floor in the amount of time that we saw her actually walking out of the building. There's no way that it could have happened. So we stand there watching as this is happening. She's going in there and turning lights off, and as soon as she locks the door, lights turn back on. And we're laughing. And we probably shouldn't have been. It's like, midnight, and we shouldn't. She was
It was
exhausted.
fascinating,
She was
though.
exhausted, but it was funny. And she was getting frustrated. And so finally, a few minutes go by, and we think we get all the lights turned off. We leave to go home. Moniz and I are driving down the highway. We have a conversation on the phone. He calls me. He's like, "That was pretty nuts with the lights." Yep. So we're talking for a couple, a good 10 minutes. After I hang up with him, I get a text. I can't really say what it said.
Right.
But basically, she said, "I hate you." Because she said that she looked out the window and the light had gone back on again. So she had to go. She's like, "I'm not even dealing with this anymore. I'm just going to leave the light on all night."
I would too. I don't blame her.
So it's one of those things that, yeah, we have all these weird, strong, creepy experiences, but then every once in a while you have something like that happens, and it actually turns out to be kind of funny. We do have a call on the line here, so let's take that. Good evening, you're on Spooky Southcoast.
Hi, I was just wondering if Stephanie does private readings.
Oh, no, we're not. Stephanie's now a co-host.
No, not tonight. I'm just saying at any time.
I usually do. I'm on retirement right now till January, so
So January?
I am. Yep. Um, so I'm expecting my first child in October. So
Oh,
thank
congratulations.
you. So I'm taking the time off right now just so that way I can give better, accurate readings.
Let me tell you, you don't want to get a reading from her
No,
now.
no, pregnant brain is a real thing.
Okay,
So
okay, that's great. So in January, how would I connect with you?
you can contact me. My email address is sburke, BURKE 910 at yahoo.com. You can find me on Facebook at Stephanie Burke.
I think Stephanie at SpookySouthcoast.com works now too.
Oh, does it?
Okay,
Okay,
I
cool.
believe so.
cool. Well, you can get me
All right,
there. Or
thanks
just
so much.
you're welcome.
All right.
Okay,
So
good
I'm
night.
just
Good
you
night.
as well. Sorry, I'm just so used to when I hear people say, "Are you doing readings?" I think they mean like right now.
Right.
So I apologize for that. But I knew though eventually it's going to happen where people are going to call in and be like, "Well, Stephanie's there, right? She's going
They'll
to do
eventually
readings."
catch on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They're like, "Wait, that's the same Stephanie Burke."
Yeah, but it is true. You don't want a reading from me right now.
And nothing, there's nothing wrong with that. It's definitely way more important to be
It
bringing new
still
life into the
works.
world.
It's just, um, I, I'm pretty sure my child's just about as psychic as I am, and it screws things up a little bit. So things get interesting when I do try to read. So somebody's paying me. I'd like it to be 100%.
Right. If you don't feel like it's 100%, then you're right in not taking people's money for it. So
Right.
sometimes there's people who
Do
don't feel that
that.
way and will just
Right.
take people's money anyway.
And that
So
horrifies me.
it does, and
I'm a very honest person.
I know that it definitely does. So basically, we're putting all this information together. Now, the theory that I came up with, and what seems to have been the way that I've approached this haunting, to use that word, Matt Costa, over the years, is that there is something there that predates the Bordens. It was there before the Bordens ever moved in, maybe
Mhm.
even before anybody ever even built a house there, as Luann was mentioning. That there's something associated with that land,
The land, yep.
some sort of malevolent force, some people have suggested a portal being there, but there's something on that property that is just bad, just fundamentally bad, or
Mhm.
just fundamentally uh, the opposite of everything that we want to have happen.
Right.
And when this force was there, the Bordens moved in already being dysfunctional. The family was not the best family. They had a lot of fighting going on with Abby Borden being the stepmother and Lizzie and Emma not getting along with her. And so there's a lot of conflict in the house. There was especially conflict right before the murders with this discussion about this property that Andrew owned, and the daughters thought they were going to take possession of it, but he was going to give it to Abby anyway, and that's why John Morris had been there, was to help in the facilitation of that. So all this stuff is going on, all this drama is going on. Whether this force decided to influence that and push it a little further, or was the cause of that, or
Either or could be correct.
it could be anything. It could have just sat back and watched,
Mhm.
and it could have decided to push. It could have even pushed somebody to murder.
Yes.
Or that could have just happened anyway, and it was a happy byproduct for this thing.
Mhm.
But either way, and the way that I've always equated it is it was like a big meal. If this thing fed off negativity, then a double axe murder was like having a giant Thanksgiving dinner.
Mhm.
And when you eat a giant Thanksgiving dinner, what's the first thing that you want to do afterwards?
Go to sleep.
Exactly. So this thing went to sleep for a number of years. And it wasn't until everybody started going in there as a bed and breakfast and started talking about all this stuff again. Because
Well, it kicks up the energy.
when the McKinns lived there, they said that Martha McGinn said her grandparents never had a paranormal experience there.
Mhm.
That everything was happy. It was a great house to live in, a great house to grow up in. So because people weren't focusing on that, this thing stayed asleep.
Well, that too, but then again, it could be like I was talking about before, different psychical energies, the ways that we all vibrate, um, could awaken it, could feed it. It could not be interested at all. So it could have taken the right person to walk through the door to awaken the whole thing all over again.
And so when people started going there as a bed and breakfast, started talking about the murders every day.
Mhm.
And I think that this force realized that, okay, I can feed off
It's
of
at
this
a
again.
playground. Yeah.
But instead of having that one big meal and then wanting to go to sleep, it's decided to just kind of snack
Mhm.
and to get a little bit here and there. So that's why it will, quote unquote, perform in order to keep getting people to come back and keep talking about the murders and keep poking around and asking questions and
Right.
saying, you know, Mr. Borden, did you have an incestuous relationship with your daughter? All these horror stories that we hear about what might have gone on, which
Mhm.
a lot of researchers into the family have said, you know, it's not as bad as everybody makes it out to seem. But the fact that people make it out that way and they go in there with that approach is what this thing wants.
Yes.
So it has found a way to basically have, instead of a big meal, a buffet. A buffet that it can just keep picking at.
Well, nobody's ever really there long enough for it to truly feast on.
That's true too. I mean,
Because-
the only person who stays there is Leanne,
And that's still only sometimes.
and
So,
and sometimes her experiences that she has there are pretty bad.
right.
Sometimes not so much. Sometimes she calls me in the middle of the night and
Right.
says, "I just got to tell you what happened."
Mhm.
So it's. Does that mean that people shouldn't go there and stay there? No, absolutely not. You should definitely go and stay there. It's a great place, a great bed and breakfast, a great
Right.
experience.
You're not going to be there long enough for anything bad to happen.
Right, but it's just the overall story. When we start putting all these pieces together, there's something more there.
You have to wonder why. You have to wonder what causes it. Us as humans, we have that.
Everybody's obsessed with trying to figure out who killed the Bordens. Everybody wants to be the one. They think they're going to be the one to crack the case. We're never going to find the answer.
No, we're
It's
not.
been 122 years. We're never going to figure it out. There's never going to be any missing, testimony, missing piece of evidence, anything that's ever going to blow the whole thing wide open. And to me, that's not even the biggest mystery. To me, the biggest mystery is what is going on there and why. Because that is something that is not unique to just that site.
Mhm.
That is something that is universal in other places that have this type of activity and experience. So
Right.
that's the story that we really want to get to the bottom of. And that being said, we'll be back there coming this winter for Dead of Winter. We missed
That's
Dead of
always a good
Summer this
time.
year because we were so busy booking other things and
Mhm.
the house got booked up. But we'll be back there probably in February for another event because people are asking already. They want to get in there. So, and if you ever have the chance to stay, I highly recommend it. Well, that does it for this week's show. We will be back next Saturday night when our guest will be Mark Anthony, the psychic lawyer. So you'll want to tune in for that. Stephanie, it'll be great to have you for that because
Yes.
it helps
I'm
to
actually looking forward to that.
to have an actual psychic makes things a lot easier. And I just want to make sure everything's set up here. Okay, looks like we're good. All right, so if you ever want to get in touch with us during the course of the week, Spooky Crew at SpookySouthcoast.com. You can find us on Twitter at SpookySC. You can send us smoke signals, carrier pigeons. That all works too. Just
Find us any way you can.
whatever you need to do to get a hold of us, except stalking us in person. All right, until next week, we want you all to stay spooktacular.
News, talk, and sports. The South Coast turns to AM 1420 WBSM New Bedford and WBS.